Hi, this is Nick Muir, DJ producer and John Digweed's studio partner at Bedrock Records. You are listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz. This is my music and football episode where I usually bring on a DJ, producer, musician, author to talk about the two loves, which are music and football. Today it's all going to be about music because I've got an absolutely boss guest. As everyone who tunes in usually, will know that I'm a big progressive house fan. I love my prog house, have since the early 90s. But my guest today is DJ producer and production partner of John Digweed. It is Mr. Nick Muir. Welcome to the pod, mate. It's great to have you.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me, mate.
I know it feels like we just had like a good 30-minute conversation about world events and about, our kids and stuff, but it is really great to have you on. And I'm going to get right into it. So I want to talk about like your early like roots and influences in music. Like what was playing in your house as a young kid, and did that have any influence on your musical tastes?
Well, yes. What my position in the family was, I've got two elder brothers, one 12 years older and one 10 years older. And then I came along. I think I just slipped through the cracks there. You know what I mean? Bit of an accident. So they weren't expecting me, and I think they thought their family was complete with John and Steve, my brothers. But no, I came along, and they were both very different characters, and they were kind of in their teens when I was about 4 or 5. See, and they were starting to listen to music. And my elder brother, John, was a huge Beatles fan, still is. And he brought home all those early records, the White Album, I remember, Magical Mystery Tour, all that stuff. And big on the Mersey beat scene, all loved all that stuff, all things Liverpool, supported Liverpool, actually. And my younger brother Steve, he was more of your like your funk and soul guy. Four Tops, Tamla Motown, Isaac Hayes, Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway, that kind of thing. So I had that music playing at me when I was about 4 or 5, something like that. Both sides, because they were two such different characters, my brothers. Then there was this slight competition between them about whose music was better. And Steve was always slagging off the Beatles and the stuff that John used to listen to. And John didn't bother with the soul thing. But I listened to both sides, obviously. So I had that coming at me. It was a brilliant early musical primer, I would say. Very lucky because, we're talking about the 60s now. And it was a kind of golden era, really, if you think about it. I guess between 1960 and, the latter half of the 20th century was brilliant for pop music generally. We were lucky, man, to be around for that. But also, my elder brother, John, he had a band and sang. They used to rehearse in our living room. And they would turn up with the drum kit and the bass guitar. Now, as a kid of 4, for me, this was like pure magic, absolute magic. I couldn't believe I didn't quite understand what was going on. All I knew was I wanted to play those drums, get on the drums, the sparkly silver drums, And I remember looking at the bass guitar and wondering at the fact that it had this great long neck, and the other guitar had a shorter neck. Trying to figure out. So that was absolutely magic. So my brother had a band, and both brothers had different music tastes and bought all the records. So I got a kickstart to music. I mean, my mum was a singer. She was like a trained opera singer. Went to Trinity College, but she was never professional. She didn't quite make it that far. And then also you've got to remember that the war got in the way at that point. But she was trained, and sorry, I'm rattling on. I'll keep going though. I might as well. You see, the fact that she was a trained musician meant, and we had a piano in the house. See, and I would go when I was like 3 years old. I would go to the piano and start picking out chords. And in my little 3-year-old brain, that note went with that note and that note went with that note. And my mum spotted this. And so it was like, right, lessons. So I started piano lessons age 5, thanks to my mum spotting the fact that I was drawn to it, which I was really drawn to it, It's like I'm still the same. If I see an instrument anywhere, that's what it's all about for me, playing a musical instrument. So I started then.
Well, it seems like if you can play the piano, you can play anything musically. Were you at first, like when playing the piano, was it more just a feel for it, or when could you start reading sheet music?
In those days, if you start at that age, they start you reading right away, right? And there's like it's not like, obviously not like these days. Those days, there was a very tried and tested path to learning an instrument and learning to read music. So I was taught to read music, very early. But the reason that my mum started me wasn't what came first was the fact that she could tell I was intrigued by the thing and was starting to pick out chords at a very, very young age. So that's why she started me in lessons. But as soon as you start on lessons, they're like, okay, right, here we go. C sharp, D, And then I had lessons age 5 till I went to college, at 18. So, and, I was going well when I was sort of 10, 12. I think they thought I had it in me to, be a straight musician, classical piano player. But I mean, that's a lot of work, and it's like the sort of work that I didn't really fancy doing. I had too much of the other stuff in my psyche by that time.
Well, I think sometimes, we, as parents, we notice our kids are decent at something, and then we kind of push them a little bit. I see it in football. One of my mates has a football academy over here,
Okay.
and just watching parents think, their kid's the next Ronaldo or Messi, or, especially with piano, the next Mozart. It kind of takes the enjoyment away from the child sometimes, because the parents can get pushy.
They lean on them a bit, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, no, but it's a famous cliche, isn't it? No kid age 8 wants to do his piano practice. You know what I mean? And I do remember being that age, and all day I'd be reminding myself that I hadn't done my piano practice that day. And it was kind of always in the back of my mind that I still had to do it. So it was onerous, it was a chore, I'll put it that way. But what Mum said was, after I'd done my scales and done a bit of learning of the piece for that week, I would always stay another half an hour and just play, play by ear. And it's something I've always been able to do. And, I'm still making a living at it today, Daz.
Yeah, I see that. It's not bad, eh? So going a little bit fast forward to college, and you said you're still doing like piano lessons. Where did the next step come in for you?
Well, we lived on the border of Wales in Hereford. My dad used to work in Heathrow. He was worked for British European Airways and then British Airways, and he retired, and we moved from West London, where Heathrow is, out to Hereford. He retired there, and I was 14 then, and I settled in all right. And quite a good mate of mine, Dave Morris, who was a piano player as well. I remember he went to Cardiff University and studied music, and we were good mates. And I thought, "Ooh, that sounds like fun." So I'll do that too. So that is what I did. I went to Cardiff Uni, and I did a music degree there, and that was 3 years having fun, courtesy of the government. That's how I remember it. It was a brilliant time, really, really good fun. And I got my degree, but it was fine. I got a half decent degree, but I could tell that was the end of my academic career. You know what I mean? I'm no academician, so I left college, and I thought, oh, right, now what do I do? Nobody prepared me for that. Like, no more grants, no more subsidy from my dad. It was like, right, there you go. You got your degree. Off you go. I was like, oh my God. So I didn't know what to do. So I just rode around on my bike around Hereford for a couple of months, and then I applied to United Artists Music Publishing, and I got a job in the office there, and that was up in London in the West End. And it was just being a clerical assistant or something. And so I said to my mate Andy, my good mate, we're still mates. I said, come on, let's go to London. We'll hire a place, we'll rent a place together and have some fun. So that's what I did. Went from Hereford to London, and I worked in the music publisher for 6 months. And that kind of got me out of Hereford, got me out of home, and got me started. So yeah, that was the next step.
So were you playing out in any bands at that time?
What happened? So the first 6 months, yeah. What I bought an electric piano, actually, a Wurlitzer, which is like quite famous. It's like a Fender Rhodes piano, only not quite as. It's just slightly more lightweight Fender Rhodes. I bought one of those for 200 or 300 quid, and then we started doing little gigs in pubs. I remember playing jazz gigs in a pub called The Favourite, which was in Islington. I mean, nobody came, we used to sort of play one set and then sneak out to the van and smoke a banger, and then go back in, and everything seemed to come a bit easier then, I played the second set stoned. That was really good fun. So I did that, and then I tried to get a job at the BBC. They used to run this course called the Assistant Studio Managers course. And if you got on that course, then they train you up as a producer, a radio producer. And I remember I had an interview with the one guy, and he seemed to like me, and he said, okay, well, we'll give you a board. They call it a board, where you go and there's like 5 people, and you go and sort of sit in front of this panel, and they fire questions at you. You see, but I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know what I was supposed to know and what I wasn't supposed to know. And if I'd had some help and somebody had, wised me up, clued me up about what that interview might have consisted of, then I think I might have got that job, and life would have been very different. But I remember they asked me, I remember the question, they said, right, could you tell me what does it mean when a tape machine is in azimuth? And I had no idea what they were talking about. And what that actually means is when the tape heads are lined up properly. But if I'd known that piece of information, I think I might have got onto that course. and life would have been different. But as it was, they didn't take me. And so at that point, I thought, well, sorry, I'm just going to see if I can pick up any jobs playing. So I started doing auditions. And that's how I got started as a professional musician. I don't know how professional I was, but I was doing it for a living from that moment on.
Yeah, I mean, being a session player it has got to be tough because I have a couple of mates, they kind of the same, and one's a drummer. Festival season, very busy. Very busy for him. But after that, it's tough. Like day to day, like getting a paycheck. Because the band that he's with is not touring. So he's got to find some other gig, and it must be so tough. Like back in the day, to just be trying to make your way through the world and make a bit of cash as well.
Yeah, that's the problem with being a touring musician, is that you have to come back off tour, as you say. And what the hell do you do? It's like you've got to pick up another tour. Now, of course, if you get a reputation, then you get something rolling along. You can normally pick up work, but I didn't particularly like it because it was pretty tough, and you're surviving day to day, and also you're never quite sure where that next job's going to come from. But the balancing side of that is that you have some fantastic adventures.
Mm-hmm.
First playing job I got was there's a punk band called Stiff Little Fingers. I don't know if you go back that far.
Yeah, know him.
Jake Burns' band. He split that band and started another band called Jake Burns and the Big Wheel, and put an advert in Melody Maker, which I answered, and went along and auditioned, and they took me. I could play well enough to impress somebody who didn't really know too much. You know what I mean? I used to learn like the first 16 bars of really difficult pieces. So if somebody said to me, "What, can you play classical music?" I'd like sort of ram out the first 16 bars of Chopin's Revolutionary Study, and they go, "Oh, you can obviously play that." But if they'd asked me to play the rest of it, then I would have been stuck, But I got that job with Jake Burns, and we did a tour, and it was good fun. I mean, Jake's still playing now. He can still do big gigs with Stiff Little Fingers, and he was pretty popular then, so that was good fun. That was my first proper playing gig.
Well, I mean, you played for Take That, right?
We did do a tour with Take That, me and a bunch of ne'er-do-wells. Yes. We were a band, and we were playing backing up other singers, and we were kind of a ready-made unit. And one of the guys who would tour manage us, he found out about this boy band, Take That, who I remember thinking, it's a bit like New Kids on the Block or something like that. I think that's what the model was. And Gus, the tour manager, said, "Look, let's go down and see if we can pick up this gig." They used to do gigs. They used a DAT tape, like a backing tape, and they would do the dance and sing over the backing tape. And they decided, this is early 90s, that they wanted to not do the DAT tapes anymore and have a live band. And so we were their first live band, but they didn't ask us back, I'm afraid. We're a bit too unruly for them. I think, the fact that they wanted to try and, be a wholesome band which appealed to young girls. And we were guys in our 30s, and they thought we were a bit too gnarly, which we were actually.
Yeah, but if you go a bit deep, like the Robbie Williams, the naughty boy of Take That. Yeah,
well, he blamed us he blames us for going off. It's a funny story actually, because I remember Rob was different to the other guys. You know, you could tell that there was he was kind of not quite in the same mold as the rest of them. And I remember I thought that guy should go solo, really, and which of course he eventually did. But anyway, fast forward. I mean, we can go back, but fast forward to COVID times. I got this funny email from a guy who said, "Oh, sorry, this is a bit out of the blue, but I'm Robbie Williams' manager," and he said, "Rob's into doing a bit of a dance project. What would you think about, you know, maybe having a go at something as Bedrock?" Now, of course, Bedrock isn't really a band anymore, but Rob liked, you know, For What You Dream Of from the Trainspotting soundtrack. Mm-hmm. But the manager didn't know that I actually knew Rob from those days. So Rob rang me up and we had a chat, and then he gave me some vocals and some stuff that he'd been working on, and I started to work on it a little bit. And you know, we've got a little relationship going. I send him a message from time to time, and he sends me a little message, and you know, we're still kind of in touch. But after all those years, because that was 27 years later, you know, and I said, well, you took your time, get back in touch with me. But I've still got some bits and pieces on the hard drive. He's good, Robbie is, you know. It's like he is a certain type of, you know, it's kind of popular entertainer. As he himself says, listen, I live in Popland, you know, and it's like me and John don't, you know what I mean? That is not what we do. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't have a go at something like that, but it's like we're slightly different paths. But Rob's good songwriter, you know, his lyrics are really good, and he writes good top lines. And you know, we did a couple of things. Like I say, I'm not quite sure that story has entirely ended yet, but it was brilliant after all those years to speak to him again, and knowing what I knew about how that whole thing panned out. And you know, because like I say, it was beginning of rave times, or when we started touring with them, and you know, Rob would see us like spilling out of the tour bus with cans of Stella and, you know, joints on the go, and he'd be like, what the fuck are those guys doing? In fact, his manager told me that he said that Rob said that we made Oasis look like a bunch of lightweights. Which I was quite pleased with that. But that, like I say, we did one tour with them, and then they got a different band together. And I think the guy who came after us, who did the tour the following years, I think he's still with them now. So if we'd behaved ourselves a bit better, then we might have had a job for life there. But you know, the music wasn't for me. You know what I mean? We was, you know, I loved doing the gig, and thought everybody was great, but you know, I was getting heavy into my dance music then. You know, it was like I was right in the middle of that thing, you know, that happened in about 89, 90, which I remember as being an explosion, really, of house music and a culture and a way of doing things. It was a completely new way of approaching music, and I had you know, what I felt was like a ringside seat to watch that whole thing blow up. It was extraordinary privilege, actually, as a musician, to watch something like that happen.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, we kind of come from the same background, same, you know, of just immersing ourselves in acid house, in the music. Like it really was a day-to-day thing for me, as it sounds like it was for you. You know, I'll always say, like, the record shop was a meeting place. It wasn't just to buy records, it was to meet, you know, different people, and that you still had the same musical tastes, And, you know, as I know, Steve Parry, for 3 Beat for me, you know, I always remember him because he'd always try to sell me, you know, so much vinyl. But there was a connection there as well. It wasn't like he was just slinging it just to sling the records. He would explain to me like the bass lines and everything, and we just connected, just like everybody else that bought records, you know. In the
Have you known Steve since those times then? Yeah.
I haven't. Like we have chatted, you know, obviously those years in Liverpool, like, you know, we didn't become mates, but we became, you know, familiar with each other. And then I actually was able to, he had time to come on the show and talk to me. And then we kind of reconnected. You know, I was like, yeah, you sold me this and this and this. And, you know,
Yeah.
a great chat. And, you know, I used to go
He's
to,
he's a lovely guy, man. Steve. He's a
oh,
lovely guy.
straight laced, as in like, you know, he'll tell you how he feels. You know, there's no BS behind it. And
No, absolutely, yeah.
he had one of
He's a
like,
very genuine guy.
oh, 100%. And he's kind of the same as well. When he was telling me, like, when he was kind of growing up, he wanted to be on the radio. He wanted, and he did the hospital radio first, and then he wanted to go into that. But then obviously, you know, Acid House came along, and
Yeah.
you know, kind of he rode the wave with that. And it's just, you know, I try and not to sound like a granddad, you know, where we like, oh, it was much better in our days. But, you know, for me, it was just, you know, because I'd heard about like the Woodstock and the hippie revolution over in the States.
Yeah.
And then I'd heard, you know, my dad talking about like Ozzy and all that. And then my mum talking about the Beatles, you know, that she'd seen the Beatles live and everything. So it really, Acid House was for me, you know, it me and me mates, it just clicked because the music was something I'd never heard before, and as
Yeah.
soon as I heard it, I was like, I want more of this, and that's where I got kind of came into it. Now for you, did the production side come first, or was the DJing?
Oh no, I was well into the producing side of it. It's you see, I was playing. I was in a band called The Men They Couldn't Hang, who are like they're sort of like punky band, like but folk, rocky folk punk type of like the Pogues. Like Kush, the singer, he had been roadie for the Pogues at about the time they
God.
started off. Huh?
Wow. Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. Um,
Got
so
some stories.
oh no, madness. Look, they were good guys, man. We're still friendly. But I joined them and they couldn't hang. They were like they had signed a new record contract and they wanted somebody to play piano and organ with them on tour to just like bolster the sound a little bit. I think give them a bit of an extra dimension there. Take it in a slightly different direction, maybe. So I was touring around with them, and then we did an album with a producer called Pat Collier, who's became a good friend. And in the studio, Pat could see I was dead keen, and I was playing all sorts of different instruments, and you know I could pick up anything by ear and play it. And he thought, okay, this guy's keen, and he had a big hit with the Wonder Stuff. You know, the Eight-Legged Groove Machine was their album, which broke them. And Pat had produced that, and it had done well, and he'd made some money, and he'd built a studio in Old Street up in town, up in London, like East London. And he'd also bought a load of samplers, Akai samplers, and a load of Atari computers. You know, Pat was a visionary, really, and he could tell the way things were going. So he bought these samplers. Akai S1000s were the first stereo samplers readily available. And he said, listen, do you want to come down to the studio and learn to use the samplers and learn to sequence using the software, and see if you can make any headway with that. And of course, that for me, that was like, he was the guy I'd always been waiting to meet, really. And so I went in there every day for about 4 years, 7 days a week, and listened to hi-hats all day long, and learned to use the samplers and the kit. And it was at that time that house music was just starting to come in real big. You know what I mean? That sort of, and I was aware of the acid house thing in 1988, but I didn't know too much about it, and I thought it sounded a little bit tin pot. I remember thinking it sounded a bit bleepy and a bit, I wasn't quite sold on it. But then early 90s, like 1990 or so, started to hear some like Italian house records, which were richer and more musical sounding to my ear. Yeah. And I thought, okay, that sounds amazing. Then, because I was in the Men They Couldn't Hang, who were kind of leading a slightly alternative lifestyle, you remember the Travelers and all that lot? Mm-hmm. The guys who used to, live in the horse boxes, and we lived on a boat moored by Kew Bridge, which had no electricity, no running water, no gas or anything like that. So it was all a bit basic, but we had a bunch of people who were sort of ex-punks but getting into the rave thing as well, and we had some amazing parties in that place, I can tell you. So I was around that lot, and also going out to clubs, and also playing and doing that tour would take that. So I was flying high at that point, I can tell you. It's good fun. It was the time of my life, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you're at a certain age, and you're just doing the things that you love, but there's also excess there as well, like, this and staying up till God knows when, How
do you describe those times to people? You can't, can you?
Yeah.
It's like, because the thing is, if you get anywhere near a description, in your own mind, if you were there, it sounds awful, like you say, granddaddy, but hey, mate, that was just like, what the fuck happened there, man? Mm-hmm. What actually happened there? It was just this confluence of things that happened. And I remember sitting there listening I used to listen to the Abstract Dance. What's his name? Colin, on Kiss FM. That's bad. I'm going to forget his name. But I used to listen to that, and listen to this house music with this big whacking great kick drum coming out, and I'm thinking, well, I've been listening to music all my life. Where did that come from? It just appeared, and it was to do with what people were on and the time and what happened with the technology, what was available. The idea of having this time-locked music, because it was sequenced. I mean, we had sequencers before then, but the idea of being able to layer everything up on a computer like that, on the Atari, everybody had a crack of Cubase and the Atari. I remember I was doing a session actually with another band that I was in, and the engineer saying to me, "Nick, you're a keyboard player." He said, "You should get yourself a Roland D110. He said, "It will play 8 sounds simultaneously." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And so, yeah, it was they call it multi-timbral. It means that you can play more than one thing at a time. And I didn't know this existed. So I bought a D110 and the Atari and the Cubase, and I started with that. Realized as soon as I started to put a piece together, so that's me. That is me. And then I met Pat and went to the greenhouse where he had his studios and took it the stage further, which was with the samplers and everything. So really, at that time, it just took off, man. The whole thing just took off and started to fly. It was an amazing time.
I mean, like I've tried to, I mean, my dad, I think, asked me one time, like, what 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 did Acid House like do for me, or he asked me a question, and I
Mm.
was like, I can't really explain it to you fully. I was like, you have to be there, you have to be immersed in the music, in the scene, and it really is. It's like, trying to go back and explain to, some of the kids nowadays. Um, and again, if you were there, you've got stories to tell, especially being in fields, with thousands of people who you didn't know. And by the end of the night, you've got like 20, 30 new best mates, that you would keep in touch with. But it was just the whole, like, calling a number, going to that place, calling another number, going to another place. It was just the excitement of it. But I know that some people kind of, drifted out of it. But I know for myself, I loved every second. And it was
Do you
just,
remember that it was? Do you remember that at the time there was this vibe, wasn't there, which was like, keep it quiet,
mhm.
just be, keep it zipped, shush, and that you'd see that kind of thing. There's a buzz going on, but keep it to yourself, because people knew that as soon as, if this gets out, then it'll just get jumped on. But
Yeah.
if you can keep it quiet and just keep it to yourself for a little while at least, and let's enjoy the moment.
Well,
Uh,
anti-establishment.
yeah, and the fact that you were in a certain frame of mind, and that came about for certain reasons which none of us were very sure about, but we knew that it was amazing, and we knew we had to keep it quiet because otherwise it would just get stopped. But there was some amazing times around, I mean, 92, 93, 91, those years I just remember being extraordinary, really, fabulous.
Well, I kind of had, Nick, I kind of had the best of both worlds because, I obviously grew up back home and into early acid house, and got all that. But I came over to the States as well. So I was only 3, 4 hours away from Orlando,
Hmm.
which, had started like a massive prog scene. Chris Fortier, Dave
Oh,
Canati, uh,
yeah,
Kimball Collins. And that's when Sasha and John came over for the first time. They played Beecham Theatre at Oz. And I went to that. And that really just changed, another change in my life moment,
yeah,
because I tried to gain new friends when I was over there, and I tried to tell them about, what's going on back home, and they were just like, what?
whatever.
And I was like, for some reason, somebody had got a hold of me and were like, Sasha and John Digweed are coming to Orlando, and I already knew who they were, so I was like, come on, lads, let's go. And they were like, what, DJs, blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah,
But we went, and it changed their lives as well, and is quite bizarre, what a little pink or white substance,
yeah,
can do to somebody and open their ears up. But there was a few things, that kind of the triangle effect, the music, the people, and
the substance.
the substances. Was all in line with each other. But yeah, it
Careful, keep your voice down. Somebody's listening.
yeah, yeah. You never know these days, but it was great to see that in Orlando, and especially, I even went to Gainesville Simons, which,
Yeah,
to me, Simons is still was one of the best clubs, just because, again, it was word of mouth, and I've never seen anything. July 4th, Sasha and John played, and
where's Gainesville?
Florida.
Florida. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's about three, three, three to yeah, about 3 hours away from Orlando. So with
yeah,
living in Savannah. You know, it was Orlando 4 hours, Gainesville 3 hours, Jacksonville
Okay.
2 hours. So, and then Atlanta 4. So it was all like a
Kind of
great,
doable.
yeah, yeah. So every single weekend, every Friday, Saturday night, I was going,
Mhm.
and it was just a great
Good
time.
man.
Oh man, you know, I actually got pulled over going to Gainesville, um, and I didn't even have a driver's license because my
Oops.
three mates were on substances. They'd taken
Oops.
it too early, and
Yeah.
they cranked the music, and I got stopped by a good old boy,
Oh my
um,
God.
a copper, and he didn't know what to do with me. He was like, "Can you get out the car?" And he's like, "What's wrong with those three?" I was like, "Oh, they're just really tired." He's like, "Can you turn the music down?" So, you know, I turned it down and I was telling him, like, just be cool, all right? So he took me and he's like, "So you don't have a driver's license? Do any of those have driver's licenses?" I was like, I think they do, but you know, they just got off of work and
Yeah.
they're, where you going? And I'm trying to think not to say Simons, you know, no,
Right.
to a club. So, you know, I made something up and he's like, I could write you a ticket right now. He's like, are you over here on holiday? So of course I'm like, yeah, sure I am. He's
Yeah.
like, well, if I write you a ticket, all you're going to do is probably rip it up and I'll never see you again. I was like, no, I wouldn't do that. He's like, well, there's just no point in me giving you a ticket, but you were going 70 in a 35. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, I could take you to jail right now. But while I'm talking to him, the music in the car is slowly getting louder and louder, and you see the lads doing this, and I'm like, "Oh God, this is not going to go well." And then the copper goes, "You're going to Simon's, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, you're 15 minutes away." He's like, "I'm going to drive." He goes, "Are you the only one who can drive?" And I was like, yeah. And he goes,
Yes.
I will drive you to Simon's. So he drove behind me for 15 minutes just to make sure, okay. While my three mates are just having the time of their lives, and I'm like, you bastards, you could have all been in jail, but we could have been in jail while you three are on stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It's just one of those, like, you know, I look back and go, we did some daft things,
That
but
was impossible.
you know,
That, can you imagine that happening today? No.
no, no chance. You know, it's just one of those where it's like one day I'll probably tell me kids, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those where I'm like, Daddy could have gone to jail because of his three
When
mates.
was that? Do you remember the year?
I would probably say that was maybe 95, 96.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You know, it was the height of like
The eye of the
progress.
storm.
Yeah, it was just an amazing time to be in, you know, and then I would go back home and, you know, the scene was rocking in Liverpool and Manchester.
Mhm.
It was just a glorious time. And what I want to know from you as well is, you know, obviously you met John. Was this at a party?
No. 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 Uh, the sax player who was in the band that I was with when we toured Take That, and that band, who's a good friend of mine, he knew John. Um, they used to play. This would have been, I mean, what we're talking about, like 1990. Uh, John used to play the sometimes at the ski resorts, you know, um, and he likes to ski. John does, and Simeon, who's the sax player friend of ours, he also skied, and Simeon would be playing in the band there, and John was the DJ. That's how they met, and they'd have some beers, and they got to know each other, and they both got terrific sense of humour, and they got on well, and John was playing that type of music, and Simeon went, "Oh, my mate Nick has just started to produce that type of music. Why don't you meet up?" And so John, being a man of action, which he is, he got in touch, and I said, well, come over to the studio, and he came over with his bag of records, and we started from there. He said, I like this, I like that, I like that, and like that. What do you reckon? So, and we started producing that at that point. 91.
It's so good to hear that. Like it just sounds so nice and organic,
Yeah.
And funny. And I think that's where you get the most. I think like pleasure is when it's organic and not like forced. Like I just feel sometimes like collaborations these days are a little bit forced with people, because of this agent knows this agent, and it's kind of that vocalist will go well with him, that they've both got mega followings, let's put them together. But it's great to know that you and John connected just organically. And
well, I used to work with there was a label called Deep Distraction, who were part of Profile, and I had done a remix for them. This is real early days, and I had a piece of vinyl, and I didn't have any bits of vinyl at that point, but they pressed some of these up. So I can remember going to Heaven, actually, and it was Rage. Do you remember that party? Stormzy used to play. No, not Stormzy. Fabio
Rider. Yeah.
And I mean, that gives you an idea of what days it was. Like Diggers would play on the same bill as Fabio and Groove Rider. I mean, it was ravey times, and I remember going up in those days. The DJ booth was just like in a cage overlooking the dance floor, and there was like a little hole in the side of the cage, which was just 12-inch record size. And I went up there and I posted my piece of vinyl through this hole in the cage to John. I remember the look he gave me, typical Diggers look like, what the fuck are you doing? I don't have it, So he took it off me. But following that, then he came down to the studio and we did a couple of remixes. And after that, we wrote, next thing we did was For What You Dream Of.
Yeah. And then
as Bedrock. Yeah.
As they say, the rest.
Look, John, I have to give him credit. We made that record and then he stood by it. He featured it on Sasha and John's Renaissance, the Mix Collection, which was kind of the first compilation which did any business. It was a big record. It sold 100,000 copies, which for a mix compilation was unheard of. And in fact, I don't even think there wasn't much in the way of mix compilations before then, really. There's some, but John featured it on that record, and and that got it noticed. So that's what he's brilliant at doing that, John. He's always been good at like breaking records and bringing attention to music that he thinks is worthwhile, and he's got the confidence to do it, you see. And that's one of the reasons that we managed to get off and running, because John stood by the record that we made, and then it gradually it got known, because that record, the Mix Collection, the Renaissance Mix Collection, was kind of groundbreaking, really. And we went on from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Mix compilation, it was the whole package, wasn't it? It wasn't just the music, it was how it was packaged and just the artwork as well. And I think that's another thing that I miss as well is kind of like the vinyl. Like when I get vinyl, and I say it all the time, I love the smell of new vinyl.
I love the smell of vinyl in the morning.
Yeah, it's just, you're ripping off the plastic. But it was not only the music, it was the artwork, it was, I would read every single word that's on the gatefold, and that's what I did when I bought the CD. It was just very well packaged,
Yeah.
it was just brilliant. I mean, the music on there was
Yeah.
absolutely groundbreaking. When you're in the studio with John, now when a track kind of starts for both of you, do you jam first, or does one come up with the melodies, or how does it work for both of you?
And it was always at the beginning. John would turn up with records and say, "Well, I like this sound, okay, and I like this loop or this bit of percussion or elements." He would give me elements and say, "I like this element. Can we get something like that into the track?" Which is interesting because John's not a musician as such. He's a DJ, a genuine DJ, a true DJ, and he judges things solely on what he can hear, and if it makes sense to him, then he'll go with it. It's a weird thing with John. It's like he seemed to me to always know the sound that he wanted to make in terms of music. He had a sound. He seemed to me, I don't know whether this is true or not, but it seemed to me that he had the sound in his brain fully formed before we even played a note together. It's like, just in terms of the pace of it for a start, and the fact that it was, he would always say, because I was a musician, I was always putting too much in, said, like, keep it simple, and always he had the, the groove, the rhythm of it. That was what he was trying to get right and put elements over that. And also, I had no clue when we first met how to properly construct a dance record. And he would say, well, and he told me what he needed as a DJ in order to make a record that was useful to him. And, things like building it up, how you'd taper elements in at the beginning, layering things, and then, keeping it a certain level, and then maybe coming off the boil a little bit, and then going back up, and then tapering it out. All that stuff John taught me, you see, and just the sounds that would work. And he seemed to have it, like I say, he seemed to have it in his head from the word go to me. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, for somebody who's not, who's a non-musician, then that I found intriguing. And also the fact that I am a musician and we came at it from different directions, I think that's the secret for our having this kind of long association and being able to work together. It's like these days we really don't have to say very much, you know what I mean? It just comes down to, a few words about, that goes on too long, that's all right, but it needs to be a bit better. And he can point stuff out to me and I kind of know what he means, you know what I mean? It's like, and I found that to be rare in music, to find somebody you work with that you're both singing from the same hymn sheet, It's like he can describe something and then I kind of get what he means and we can make that correction or work with whatever he said. And it doesn't take us very long to iron out stuff. Also, he had, his ear from mixing all these years, it's like he'll get little timing discrepancies. He said that is out of time, a loop, something that we did recently. And I was like, are you sure? And I went back and checked it, and sure enough, it was just a tiny little bit out, his ear for how things are looping over and playing together through, decades of mixing vinyl, and because his whole thing was the precision of it, getting these things working together. That's a big part of the sound. Big part of the Bedrock sound is, the fact that things work together so well and there's a thread to them, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, I read an interview. It kind of reminds me of Goldie, because Goldie's not really musically inclined, but he's kind of the same as John. He knows what's in his head, and his engineer brings that out. So, and some people will be like, well, that doesn't really sound like he's, but to me, we've all got things in our head musically that we try and get out. But if you're trying to explain to somebody, to me, it kind of reminds me on a Monday morning after you've been to the clubs on the weekend, and you go to the record shop and you try and explain what you've just heard, to the record seller, and they're just either they're not in queue with you, or they're like, what are you waffling about?
Yeah. That's right.
It's great to have a like-minded person that knows you're both on the same wavelength.
John and Sasha work well together. Sasha used to play the piano as well. He was quite a proficient pianist back when he was younger, I think. And but John's groove is so good, his the way that he manages to get the groove to stand up, the hypnotic side of it. I always loved that about his playing, and the fact that he could do so much with so little, it just, and gradually get the thing to stand up and take on a life of its own. He is the best at that, I think. As soon as John comes on, you can hear it. It's like it just starts to lock, and I just love that. We're both happy with music which doesn't have to do an awful lot, I mean, I'm not saying I always manage to make music like that, but it's like I like repetitive music, always did, So
it's one of those two, Nick. We can all hear what Digweed and Sasha play, right? And we can look for their tracks, what they've played. We can come home and try to, play what they played, and we won't be anywhere near what they've done, because they
DJ it in a DJ sense, you mean?
Yeah, because their ears are so in tuned.
Funny, isn't it?
They will hear things that we don't.
I know. I've been standing there watching John play for a lot of years now, and I'm still not 100% sure what he's doing. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, he's mixing tracks, but it's like where he'll choose to loop the thing, what he'll choose to play with what, where he'll do the mix, how he times that mix, And I remember we were in Holland recently, I say recently, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was saying, well, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get those mixes to land together at that particular point. And he just said, look, I don't know what I'm doing, really. It's just total feel thing, It's like he's aware of the music that he's playing. He's aware of the music that he's got coming up. And he's aware of how he wants them to meet in the middle. And, try and analyze it too much. It's not worth doing. It's not worth analyzing it. He's just feeling his way through the thing,
That's the way it should be. You can really tell, especially when those two are together. You're watching masters at work. You really, really are, and you try and figure them out. But I mean, I've stood there many a time. Danced, but like stood there, and kind of watched them. And then I'm just like, I've got to stop this because I don't know what they're really doing, even though I've DJ'd, but I'm like, I really don't know what they're doing. Like they're taking the bass out of there and putting something else in, they're tweaking it. I'm just going to turn around. I'm just going to have a good time. I'm just going to dance, and that's what it's about. And especially, I love still seeing smiles from both John and Sasha.
Yeah.
You know, they've been in the business for 30 plus years, and they're still smiling. They're still, and it's great to see them both back together after, you know, a long time. Like the Delta Heavy tour was, I think, the last time that, you know, they were. I mean, I can't imagine going on that tour, you know, all around America. Like, it was a massive tour to kind of do, and then they went their separate ways for a long time. You know, I don't know.
Years.
Yeah, you know, they just wanted to kind of follow their own path. Now for you, obviously, you know, you are very well known as John's production partner. Now,
Yeah.
for you to get out in the world as well, you know, to put out your own music, was it tough to kind of do that without having the tag of, oh, I'm John Digweed's production partner?
Well, look, the thing is, if you find yourself in the fortunate position of having an association with somebody like John, I mean, if you think about it, John and Sasha, really, they did the classic thing, wasn't it? They kind of created their own market, really, and dominated it, right? That's like, you know, good trick if you can pull it off, and they did. You know what I mean? And they're like kind of synonymous with a particular type of music. And I was in that mix somewhere along the line, as you know, I was helping John, and you know, it's a position that a lot of people would, you know, kill to be in. It just so happened that, you know, my path through the thing just ended up with me meeting John and us doing this work together. So it wasn't ever a hindrance. It was only ever, you know, a help and, you know, a badge of honour, really. I feel very lucky to have been involved. So, no, I at no point did I ever think that I was being sidelined or hindered or handicapped in any way by that association. Far from it, you know, quite the opposite. I was lucky to have that association.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, look, I'm able to go. I'm going over to Argentina next month. I'm playing at the Bow, which is, you know, an amazing club. It's like, you know, it's like driving a bus, man. You know what I mean? It's massive, monster sound system, and the crowd so responsive, and the system so responsive. The crew, everybody there, are just right on top of their game. I mean, that is, you know, such a ball to be able to do gigs like that. And, you know, it's because of John and Bedrock that I'm able to go and do that. So, no, it's just, you know, I'm fortunate, man, really.
Are you a perfectionist?
Oh, in some respects, my wife would say not. I'm when you're producing, putting bits of music together, it's hard. If you're doing it properly, it's hard not to. Yeah, I like, you know, I like the thing to be smack tight. You know what I mean? I don't want to put out sludge. You know, I want it to be. You know, I want all the aspects of it to be seen to, and not let anything which I haven't properly, you know, gone through to make sure that it's right. I like to cover all that ground if I can. So I don't know if that means I'm a perfectionist. I don't know. It's not perfectionism. But it does mean I try and get it right if I can. You know, it's like, well, how do you know when a piece is finished? Right? I know when a piece is finished is when there's nothing else I can do to correct it. Right? That's right. Okay, that's wrong. Correct that. That's wrong. Correct that. That's out of tune. Tune that. That's out of time. Put that into time, and then you do that 2,000-3,000 times, and you've got a track, and you go, "Have I done it right? Sounds all right to me." Then it's finished, right? But again, I don't know if that means I'm a perfectionist. I think that's just trying to do the job right.
Well, do you usually do, like, obviously the production, but do you engineer the tracks as well?
I do now. I was never. I wouldn't say that I'm an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
How we used to do it was we were at the studio at the greenhouse. I would program the tracks up and, you know, make the sounds on the samplers and with the synths that I had, and then we'd put all that into a studio and mix it. And I wouldn't drive the desk at that point. You know, big SSL desks and a Neve we had there. And we would go book the studio out for a day, plug everything up, and my mate John Gray, who is still a very good friend of mine, is a mix engineer, he would come and mix the tracks. He did stuff like the early Bedrock stuff like Set in Stone, Forbidden Zone, and some remixes. He did Heaven Sent. So he's a mix engineer, and I'm not a mix engineer. I'm a musician, you know, I'm not an engineer. But these days, you know, really you have to do the mixing yourself because, I don't know, it's not, we haven't got the means, the time or the inclination to go and plug up big studios anymore. You know, there's just no point. So I am doing the engineering now, the mix engineering, but I don't master the things myself. And sometimes we'll break the things down to stems, you know, the constituent parts, and then send them to get a stem master. We do that quite a lot now. I don't know if, you know, I'm undecided about that process, but that's what we do. And it gives me a little bit of reassurance that we're, you know, trying to get the balance as well as we can. I think my mix is all right, really, but I'm not a trained engineer in that sense.
Okay. What keeps you being creative, and what kind of inspires you?
If you go out, right, and you hear the music in situ, right, in a club, that's always the best form of inspiration. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's kind of, unless you're out listening to music, I mean, DJing, it's like playing an instrument to me. I don't think John would agree with this, but I've been playing, you know, I've been DJing regularly for the last 12, 14 years. And you go, the instrument, right, it's the system, it's the music you're playing, and it's the room with the people in it. You see, it's all those things. That's what makes the entertainment. They're all constituent parts of the instrument in my mind. And of course, it's difficult to practice that instrument. You know, you can't do it at home because you need, you know, a decent system. You need a bunch of people who know their onions music wise and are used to clubbing, and you need a decent room to play it in. See what I mean? So it's like, I'm not like, you know, I'm not out every weekend the way that John and Sasha are. So you kind of need, in order to practice your craft properly, you need to be in those kind of environments, you know. And really, after 10 years of doing it, I feel as if I'm only just kind of starting to get the hang of it properly, you know, playing those rooms, those big rooms with systems. It's like, it's really hard to play. Once you play decent clubs with decent systems in, it's really difficult to go back and play smaller rooms with smaller systems which don't work quite so well. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work, really. It doesn't work with what we're trying to do. Yeah, you can play a set, but the whole thing is about, you know, the sound that you're making, the weight of it, you know, and the fact that it's having a physical effect. You're all in a room, you're all breathing the same air. Can't make that with AI. See, Daz?
Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, you know, and again, you know, that's why we need these sound systems, because these amazing records, you know, if you play that on a crappy sound system, it's not going to do the track any justice. You know, so that, and it's a big responsibility as well. You know, we have a great like warehouse here. It's called the Concourse Project.
Okay.
You know, they do the sound is spot on. John's played here, Sasha's played here. But again, you know, you need places like this, but you kind of also do need the smaller clubs to keep the underground scene going. I mean, America's very big on EDM, you know, the festivals. People would rather spend so much money at a festival than rather go down to their local, you know, underground club to hear their resident DJ. And I think it's a fact, but it's kind of sad because, you know, resident DJs are the life of this scene. You know, they put the hard work in, you know, they set the tone for the night for the headliner to come on. And,
Sorry,
you know,
I'm just plugging the power in here.
yeah, I got it.
They set the tone for the night.
You're going off.
They set the tone for the night, you were saying?
Yeah, 100%, you know, and I just feel like what I hope, especially for the American scene, is at least 10% of those people that go to EDM events start going back to the underground clubs. Because for me, that's where it was born, as we all know, you know, as you know, we'd all go to dirty, sweaty, low ceiling venues and just had the time of our lives. We didn't care what we wore, sweat coming from the ceiling. You don't know what that was, but it was dripping on you. You didn't give a damn, you know. And you know, now I just feel some places are just way too clean. You walk in, you're just like, it's so sterile. I love, like, I'm a big history buff, so I love like something that has like an old mystique to it, heart and soul, you know, like an old home rather than a brand new, you know, building that's just shiny and new. I just love my old stuff. And you know, I keep coming back all the time to the music, and I want to come back to like Heaven Sent. You know, it came out years and years ago, and it for me took the dance floor by storm. And for me, the original was just, that's it. You know, you can touch it. And obviously, you know, you've had remixes come out again, and
oh yeah, we've rinsed it.
Yeah, you've rinsed it till it can't be squeezed anymore. But I mean, still, you know, it all the you have a breaks remix. You know, I'm sure there's a drum and bass remix out there. But
I love the Code Switch remix. Brilliant, man. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it just stands the test of time. All these remixes, it's like an ode to, you know, the original. There will nothing will ever come close to the original. I love the new productions on it. It's kind of me. It's a spooky moment as well because, you know, Little Bullet and Orange Liquid Colored by Spooky is absolutely amazing. And you've got Alex Cassian, who just did a redo of it with Placid Angles, John Beltram. It's amazing.
Well, look out for that.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I had Duncan on last week, and it's one of those moments for me because yourself and John and Spooky, like Spooky to me put out one of the best albums, Gargantuan, from start to finish. There was no fillers in it. It was just pure, just the stuff I needed to inject in my veins, you know. And I feel the same with Bedrock. Now, before we kind of lower this down, I've got to tell you, like, I love the dance floor stuff you've done. The Humate 3.2, the ambient.
Oh, yes.
Sure. Hands down, my favorite remix you guys have done, because it's you could start a set with that, or you can have a lazy Sunday with it, or you can do whatever you want with it. But it's because I love classical music as well, and that to me is classical music.
Oh, nice one, nice one.
It's just on
Really,
another.
really,
It's
yeah.
just on another level. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people go Heaven Sent or uh, uh, your dance floor tracks are the ones they go for. I go for that remix every day of the week, just because it hits me here. It makes me
Brilliant.
think of a better time. You know,
Right. Excellent.
uh, yeah, of where I was like young and free,
Yeah.
Now, not saying I'm not free now, I've got, the kiddos and the missus and everything, but it does
But
it.
somewhere along the line, it resonates with you. I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Look,
100%.
that's the ultimate goal as a musician, isn't it? Is to do that thing. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to summon that up. So
Yeah.
that's nice of you to say, and I'm pleased, to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it just does. I mean, again, Little Bullet is my other favorite track from Spooky because it just hits all the right notes for me. So yeah, they're two of my favorite tracks and like ever. And that's not like BS, because I'm not that type of person to sit in front of you and like kind of hold your hand and tell you like you're the best damn thing since sliced bread. This
I hear you.
this song is, oh my God, my favorite, and then later on I'll be like, nah, it's not. It's true, Nick. You get what you get with me. There's no like I said, no BS. So if I tell you I love your track, I absolutely love it. So yeah.
Nice one, man.
I know you've got a track coming out. I think June 20th. It's you, John, and Spencer Brown, Relentless.
Yeah.
Uh, Very much looking forward to that. How did that come about with Spencer?
I don't know how John and Spencer hooked up or got to know each other originally. Actually, all I know is that at one point John said, "I want to do a track." You see, we've been doing collaborations over the last decade or so, and I think John enjoys it. I think he likes to bring somebody else's perspective into the thing, and if he hears music by somebody and it's chiming with him, and they're the right type of person, he'll suggest a collaboration, and that's what happened. He obviously got to know Spencer. Spencer was, I believe, I don't want to talk out of turn, but I believe he was, he was kind of, there's this sort of crossover, EDM progressive crossover. There's a boundary, like the blur. There's a bit of a blurred boundary sometimes between some guys sort of cross over from one to the other, and I think Spencer was, popular for doing stuff which was slightly less gnarly than the type of stuff that Bedrock normally do. But I think John really liked the music that Spencer made and decided that it might be an idea if we tried to do Relentless together. So we started. I mean, it took us a lot of going backwards and forwards before we came up with the final thing. It was originally 18 minutes long, Relentless. But we cut it down, added elements, produced it. I did some, sent it back to Spencer. Then we'd send, the result of what we'd done to John, and John would chip in. And then, eventually we came out with a track. But Spencer's a really lovely guy and a very talented DJ, actually. He's, one of the best. And I think John respects his DJ abilities as well as his producing abilities. So, we're lucky to have him along, really, and we're pumped for it, man. John's been getting some great reactions, and so has Spencer with the tune. So,
Yeah, I just think it's really great too because he's American, right, Spencer?
He is, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's based out of San Francisco. But I've heard about him a couple of years ago, and I was kind of digging his sound. So it's nice also that yourself and John bring in the younger generation of producers as well. It gives them a platform, and hats off to that because and as we kind of we've got to look to the future as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing where these younger producers, look up to yourself and John and Sasha, and they're making some incredible music at the moment.
They sure are. Yeah, that's right.
And I want to ask you what's your favorite? Where is your favorite place to play? I know Argentina is probably up in your top 5.
I'm never going to play a better gig than the Bow. That's like, what else do you need, man? That's fantastic. And I've been playing Argentina twice a year for, like I say, 10 years, and it's the dream DJ destination. I've played, the Ministry of Sound here in London, and that's a well set up club. It really is. I played in a room out the back of the Egg. We had a great time there. I played a couple of weeks ago in Shoreditch, in the house, place called a Horse and Groom upstairs. They have some, they got a system, and we managed to sell out the tickets, and we had a proper good old knees up there. So, but like I say, it's like once you played those big rooms in Argentina, I played Club Bali in February. It's like, just a wonderful experience, man. So, yeah. But what I would like to do is I'd love to put on a night where I spec it out myself, and I like get a dry hire room without a system in it, and maybe treat it more like a rock gig where you put the system in and the lights in and just go for it. Another place I'd love to play would be Room 2 in Fabric, actually, since they've done it up.
Yeah. It's much closer, to Hunters now, which I think is really, really good. I love Fab. I mean, I know they've redone the dance floor in Room 1. When I first went to Fabric, David Alvarado was playing and Tom Middleton.
Okay.
I didn't have a clue about the dance floor, that it vibrated. I thought
body sonic, is that what they call it?
The what?
Body sonic.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about it, so I thought something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Fabric they know how to plan a party. Those 3 rooms are just incredible. And yeah, I would pay definite money for who would be some of the people on your lineup.
Well, it's I'm going to play in end of July. I'm going up to Glasgow to play at that Skyline event in the Radisson. But it's I'm playing with Will, who does his super progressive project. He'll be playing. There's a guy called Lloyd Barwood. He's coming up. He's he's one of the younger generation, and he's doing it.
He's grafting. He's grafting.
Yeah, that's right. They know what the music is, how it should sound, and they're serious about doing it. So, I'd be inclined to get people who are like sort of that generation who, of course, some of the Argentinian guys are like, these are people of my good friends now, like Marcelo Vasami, and, there's a few of them. I would have any of those guys play any day of the week. They really know what they're doing, Mariano. So, they're a long way away, but so it would be difficult to get over here. Nico Rada, who did quite a lot of work with Nick Warren, he's great. And so, look, there's plenty of guys, but like I say, I want this music to translate to a younger generation if possible, because it is, when it's done right, it's a great entertainment, man. It so is. And listening to John these days, it's kind of feels as alive and vital as impactful as it always did, and it means as much to me now as it did then. So really hope that we can get a few more guys getting on the train.
They will. I mean, you got the prog lads in Manchester. Manchild, I think, is doing a fantastic job. It's just coming through, and same with America as well. There's a lot of like American producers and DJs that are really starting to, people are starting to take notice of, and it's
Mike
great.
Rish, do you know Mike Rish?
Yes, yeah,
man, it's fucking brilliant.
yeah.
Music, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've been talking to a lad, Nomad in the Dark.
Okay.
He's one to watch out for. He took a break for a little while, but he's starting to put more stuff out. He's based out of North Carolina, and it's just great to hear. It's just great to know that the scene is alive and it's still kicking and it's fresh as it was back in the day. And again, not harping to being a granddad. It's the kids' times now. Whatever they do with the phones, it's kind of irritating, but it's just the way they are. They're social media driven. The kids of today. So but the music,
just got to deal with it.
Yeah, well, the music's there, and they like the music, and that's what it's all about, is the music. Because if you don't have the music, you have nothing. You can put the visuals up, and those are great, but without what's playing, it's nothing. It to me, it's like during COVID times when they were playing footy and nobody was in the stadium. Football without fans is nothing.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, that's what I say to you when we're talking about. The thing is, in order to make the entertainment, you need those elements. One of which is a crowd who know what a party is all about. It's vital, man.
Yeah, well, I do me Friday nights here with my girls, so they're my ravers. So but they like the music.
Guinea pigs.
They are, they're taking it in. I've got two of them are interested how two records go together. So like I said, it's great to see them wanting to learn. Now I'm going to ask you the hard question. It's my last question. Favorite DJ who isn't John Digweed or Sasha?
That's right. Favorite DJ who isn't John Digweed is probably John Digweed. I do think he's the best, but I would say that. Who do I really like? The thing is, you're talking about people who are, a lot of people these days. I'm one, are DJ producers who kind of they're producing records for themselves and for other people's, but dyed in the wool DJs is, Derek Carter's amazing. Mm-hmm. Laurent Garnier, he's right up there. I know it's one of John's favourites as well. Mm-hmm. Just these guys, they really truly understand what that type of DJing is all about, and I'd encourage people to go and see them if they can, because they're not going to go on forever. Mm-hmm. And when these guys stop doing it, then something stops with them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not my type of music, but you got to love Carl Cox. Got to love him, man.
Same here. It's not my style, but you watch him play.
Now he's a complete phenomenon. It's like, to do what that guy's done at that level for that long. It's just it's like you've got to respect it. It's just fabulous. But like I say, I'm not really a techno man. I'm a Jeff Mills. If we're talking about techno, what the hell is that? Jeff Mills is like, he's an alien, man. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can remember the first time I heard live at Liquid Rooms, a mate of mine played it, and I was like, oh my God, that was like war drums, you know,
Yeah.
fabulous sound.
Yeah, I think like you can buy a mix CD or you can watch something on YouTube, but until you really see these DJs live, you know, you it's hard to explain. I mean, like I can still remember the first time again I saw Sasha Digweed. I was just like gobsmacked because
Yeah.
I'd got the mix CD. You know, it was played every day. But until you actually see them doing what they do and love, like Lauren Garnier for me is probably in my top three just because he can play anything. It's not
Yeah.
it's not just techno. He did the drum and bass set at Fabric.
Right.
He does down tempo. He could play anything. He could play a rubber band. You know, he's just that in tuned. He's an artist. You know, he's a DJ's DJ.
Yeah, yeah, totally, and that's why John loves him. So, yeah.
Well, Nick, it's been a massive pleasure of mine for you to come on and spend a little bit of your day talking.
No, I enjoyed it, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you. It's great to hear the passion, you know.
Oh, there's 100%. It still goes on. I don't go out as much, as I'd like to. It's just one of those things,
Well, we're not as young as we were.
Yeah, but I've got everything I need here. I do want America to start doing some bit more day raves.
Yeah,
I'll come out for those if I'm in.
Are they not on that? Are they not on that train yet? Then
no, not here in Austin. I mean, they'll have some little like early parties, like starting at 7 o'clock at night. But I'm talking about let's do 12 in the afternoon, and I can be in bed by 10 o'clock at night. Give me that, and I'm all right. But I'm pretty sure it'll slowly, start to come up because like every time I go see Digweed and Sasha, I see 40-year-old, 50-year-olds come out of nowhere, and you're just like, this is what it's all about, mingle with the young kids, and the young kids love it as well, because they talk to you and go, when's the first time, Grandpa, when's the first time you saw Sasha and Digweed? Oh, that was in the 90s.
Oh, Dad.
Yeah, all the way back then. But yeah, I'm as enthusiastic about this music as I was, in '88 when I first heard Acid House. So
it's an addiction, man. We've got a problem.
Yeah, I've got a problem with trainers as well.
I was trying. It's kind of the elephant in the room. I was trying not to say anything, but they all are.
Yeah. That's only a third. That's my Adidas collection. I've just had them since the YTS scheme. I got my first pair when I got paid, and never looked back. I collect them. Got tags on original boxes. It's a bit much on the old wallet, but I tell me missus when I'm gone, you can sell those for a lot of money. So she's like,
an investment, exactly.
Yeah, she's like, all right, I'm good with that. Thank you so much, Nick. Again, I want to. This will go out in a couple of weeks, but I want to thank everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on, and as always say, don't just search out new music, search out older music that you haven't heard before. There's maybe an artist that you haven't heard or a DJ that you haven't heard. If a band comes to town or a DJ comes to town, go check them out. You never know, they might be your favorite DJ after that. And as we live in this crazy world, please take care of one another and be safe. And look out for upcoming episodes with Yags Kuna from Sabres of Paradise. Cannot wait for that one as well. And also Andy Barlow from Lamb. So until next time, take care and we'll see you later.